Well, hey everybody. Today is an important day in my personal Model A hobby history. Today is the day I'm bringing home a car that I have owned since February of 1983. I've owned this car for 42 years. I bought it as a senior in high school. I did use it. It was a running car, and I did use it to finish out my school year from February to June of my senior year in high school. I used it over the following summer. And then I got put away initially in my parents' garage when I went away to college. When I came home from college over Christmas break, it got relegated to the family barn. I put it in the corner of a barn and built a fence around it so the animals couldn't get to it. And to make a very long story short, the car's been moved around from place to place in various storage units. I've restored three other Model A's ahead of it, but the one that I've owned the whole time, the first one that ever got me interested in Model A's, has been patiently waiting. For the last 15 months, it's been in this storage unit right here. And today we're going to take her out, we're going to take her home, and we're going to begin a long process of doing a restoration. The process will be very slow. It's going to take a long time to do, but I will film from time to time the process that I'm making. So it's an exciting day bringing her out of the public storage unit here. Let's get her home and let's get her taken care of. Well, there you have it. A 1930 standard coupe. She's rough, but we'll get her running here in a few minutes. We'll drive her home. Okay, the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to put on a carburetor and make the throttle connections. Then we're going to have to replace the battery, and then we'll gas her up and we'll see if we can get her to spark. Okay, I've got this carburetor that came off of my Roadster that I know is a good trusty carburetor, so we'll throw that on real quick so we know that there's no carburation issues. This car has been parked here for 15 months, so we'll keep our fingers crossed that we can get her to fire right up. Okay, we've got a new battery put in it. Got to have a fresh battery. Okay, it's been 15 months since she started. Let's see if she'll start. By now, I know you're thinking that this 1930 Model A Coupe doesn't look very much like a coupe. It looks more like a pickup, and you would be correct. The modifications to this car were made in the early 1940s. It was very common to convert passenger cars to pickups in the early 1940s. Well, why is that? It's because of the outbreak of World War II and the rationing of gasoline. Within a matter of weeks of Pearl Harbor, gasoline in the United States became rationed. You could not just drive to a gas station and fill up your car anytime you wanted. You were given a certain number of gas stamps, which were little coupons, that you had to provide the gas station to be able to buy gasoline. But it had nothing to do with gasoline being in short supply. The United States had plenty of gasoline. The United States had plenty of oil. In the late 1930s, prior to the outbreak of World War II, the United States was an oil exporter. The fact that we cut off oil to Japan was one of the contributing factors as to why Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. So if the United States had plenty of gasoline and plenty of oil, why was gasoline rationed? It had to do with the inability of the United States to get rubber. The only type of rubber they had was natural rubber, and the overwhelming majority of natural rubber was produced in Southeast Asia, primarily Indonesia, an area that the Japanese had just invaded and conquered. So the inability of the United States to get adequate rubber supplies is why gasoline was rationed. Whatever rubber the United States could obtain had to be saved for the military, for airplane wheels and military truck wheels and that kind of thing. The government had to come up with a way to have Americans not wear out their tires, because in all likelihood they would need to keep those tires until the end of the war. Well, what does that have to do with making a pickup? Well, the number of gas coupons that an individual would get depended on the type of car that they had and their occupation. Most passenger cars were given the lowest quantity of gas that people could get, and that was about 3 to 4 gallons of gasoline per week, depending on what part of the country you lived in and what your occupation was. But if you had a pickup, that was considered a work vehicle. That was considered a necessity vehicle, or at least more so than a passenger car, where most passenger car travel was considered to be pleasure driving, or could certainly be reduced, whereas a pickup was more of a work vehicle. And if you had a pickup, you could get as much as 8 gallons of gasoline per week. So it was very common to take a car that was not necessarily worth a lot of money. Model A's in the early 1940s, Model A's were more than 10 years old. V8 engines had been out for over a decade. So these were just old, slow, obsolete vehicles. People didn't take a second thought about cutting one up and converting it to a pickup if they could double their gas coupons per week. So that is the reason that this one got chopped up, was for the gas coupons during World War II. Unfortunately, whoever did this conversion didn't treat the car very well. They really chopped up the back end of it. They could have been a lot kinder to the car. But as I said earlier, these cars weren't worth anything in the 40s. You could pick one up for well under $50. So chopping one up to get more double gas coupons was very commonly done. Now, it took me about 10 years to find the back half of a 30 Coupe that I can use as a donor car to repair the damage done to this one. And I know that people are going to make comments that you can go out and buy a car for half or a third of the price of what it would take to restore one, and you're absolutely right. Restoring a car today financially makes no sense. There's so many that are up for sale as older members quit driving them and put them up for sale, that restoring a car is going to cost you 2 or 3 times what you could buy one for. And if I wasn't emotionally attached to this car for having owned it for over 70% of my life, I could easily do that. But I've always wanted to get this car back on the road, and I'm going to go ahead and spend the money to do that. Now, I know there are also going to be people that are saying I should not convert it back to a trunk or a rumble seat, leave it as a pickup because that's history. And that's a valid point too. And to be quite honest, I'm kind of on the fence at this point. Um, I don't have to make that decision today. It's going to take me at least a year to get the chassis done. So I'm going to start working on the chassis. I can make the decision as to whether or not I want to repair the damage that's in the back of this car, to put it back to a trunk or a rumble seat. It won't be a rumble seat because there's no point in having a rumble seat in a coupe. You can't even talk to the people in the back. If I do get away from the pickup version of this car, it will have a trunk. It will not have a rumble seat. So I'm on the fence as to whether I should try and repair that damage. Like I say, I do have the back half of a 30 coupe that I can use as a donor car to make the repairs, or whether or not I just want to leave it as a pickup. We'll make that decision at a later date. This car is actually going to be a fairly typical, fairly easy restoration for the first 2/3 or 3/4 of it. It does have the typical rust out at the bottom of the cowl section. And there's another rust out just behind the door. But that's very typical, and they make the patch panels for that, so that's no big deal. Unfortunately, whoever converted this to a pickup did not treat the car very kindly. Instead of just stopping at where the rain gutters stopped, and where the trunk lid would made up, whoever did this conversion actually cut into the quarter panel about an inch on each side. I don't know why that inch was so important, but they cut into the quarter panel and then all the way down to the bottom, which has obviously destroyed the quarter panel. But I do have the donor car. I do have the back half of a 30 coupe that I can use as a donor to try and repair all this. They also cut off the last 6 or 8 inches of the rear fenders and put on mud flaps. I'm wondering if that was some kind of a legal requirement to be able to classify it as a pickup, because I don't understand why they would do that otherwise. The rear bumper assembly is all welded together, and they actually had kind of a homemade tow bar made. So that'll all have to be replaced. I've actually got those pieces already. The wood box itself is actually, from a historical standpoint, kind of interesting because it's all hand forged steel. They have the tie down hooks at the top, and the latching mechanism is all handmade. So that's kind of cool. As I said, I'll have to figure out if I want to try and keep this as a pickup or whether I want to convert it back to a trunk. I've got the pieces I need to do it. It's just a matter of which way I want to go as far as the history of the car is concerned. So I got my work cut out for me. There's a lot of work that needs to be done here, but most of the bones are pretty good on it. So we'll make videos as we go and show you the progress. We're going to take the whole car apart and start on the chassis right away. I actually do have a rebuilt engine for this already. I picked up a complete engine rebuild about a year ago. So the brand new engine is all ready to go. We'll go through the transmission and put all new gears in that in the rear end. So we'll make fast progress on the chassis. The body, that's going to take quite a while, and we'll make our decision which way we're going to go at a later date. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video.
If you enjoyed today's video, please like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help the channel.